Hello, this is Paul Hollis. I'm Neil Haley's guest host today, and we have a great author with us, Candace Meredith, and she's going to tell us about her books today. Welcome, Candace.
Hello, Paul. It's so good to meet with you.
Great, great. Tell us how you got started in writing.
It's interesting because I remember writing as far back as childhood. In third grade, I wrote my first story, something about a duck and a cow, and got a very good grade on it. And the teacher read it out loud in the class. And that was kind of a theme for me that I would write for class and it would be exampled, for the rest of the students there. And so I've always kind of had a knack for creativity. And I ended up studying, creative writing in college, and I've been writing since I graduated in 2008.
Wonderful. Tell us about your book series or your books.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. So my book adventure began with a collection of poetry. Some of the poems that I wrote for my poetry class, as well as some fiction I wrote, was published in literary journals. And so I took those stories and poems and I made a collection out of them. So it felt good that something I wrote for a fiction course ended up published in the local literary journal, and that journal is Backbone Mountain Review. So that's my early on how I got started. And then from poetry and short fiction, I started writing children's books. I have my favorite, which is Afterlife. I wrote Afterlife as a follow-up to my reading. I read every book that I could get my hands on regarding near-death experiences. So I don't know if you've ever heard of them, but there's Betty Eadie, Embraced by the Light, Todd Burpo's Heaven is for Real, Don Piper's 90 Minutes in Heaven, and I was absolutely taken aback by the experiences of others. So I was in conversation with a scientist, and I said, I think that, afterlife is energy based, whereas, physically it's matter based. And I said, maybe it's just a transition. Death is a transition from matter to energy. Well, she brought up the idea of thermodynamics. And that says, energy cannot be created or destroyed, but is transferable. So I said, maybe we're onto something. Maybe this is where evolution has taken us. And I said, possibly through the evolution of human consciousness, maybe death is not as permanent as we think, but is very much so a transition, because it seems to be that the individuals who had these near-death experiences, they momentarily experienced a reality that was not like our everyday physical existence. So I got into this whole theme of matter versus energy, biology versus physics. And maybe one day physics will find a way to unite all of us together in one unified understanding of why we still exist beyond physical death. So I know that's a long answer,
Great.
but I mean, I love to read, Paul. I read and read and read. I love a good
That
memoir. I love a good nonfiction story. So a lot of my reading has inspired my writing. Um,
But wait, before you go on,
sure.
I want to know how you translate that concept of near death to
Yeah.
a children's book.
Oh, okay. So, um, Afterlife is bringing together physics and theology. So it's science and physics, or I'm sorry, science and theology in one book. And I'm trying to, unify them so that they're complementary and not contradictory. I think that science can explain why theology, in whatever method you believe it, but why it has a basis in our existence. And it's not just a fabrication, but that, well, Colton Burpo will tell you from his experience that heaven is for real. I met my deceased grandfather in heaven during my appendectomy. And that is kind of what this book is bringing together, the idea that you are going to transition from this life of physical, biological matter to something of, let's see, what energy, just energy, pure, radiant light energy. So when I was at a book signing, I had somebody come up to me and they purchased Afterlife because her granddaughter lost her uncle and she didn't understand, where is Uncle Tim? So she bought my book, and she bought it for her granddaughter to explain to her why Uncle Tim was no longer with us. And what this book does is it says he exists in this state of energy that is collective, and the place that most call it is heaven, but I think it has many names. Excuse me. I really like the idea too of I read James Redfield,
Mhm.
and he talked about Tibet, and in Tibetan culture they believe in Shambhala. It's kind of a Shangri-La. But if you can imagine this realm of radiant light energy where physical matter does not have to exist, that is probably our basis for what is heaven and why heaven is for real, as Colton Burpo put it. So I think we can eventually gravitate as a society towards this unified theory, a collective theory of what's happening, what this transition is causing. And this book, Afterlife, is written so that it transcribes to somebody who's 5 or 6 and has lost someone in the physical, so that they can kind of grasp, oh, he's alive, but in heaven. So, long answer again. I love
Oh,
to talk about
just
books I've
fascinating,
read.
fascinating. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
absolutely.
And
Yeah. Boy,
I was,
that,
I had a second woman come up to me, and she was very distraught, and she had lost her son, and she bought the book as well to, just to read to her granddaughter and to say maybe this is what happened, and maybe physical death is not as permanent. It is permanent. Physical death is permanent, but it's not the entirety of what's happening. Something interesting, Paul, in all the books I've read, is that the experiencers say they met this androgynous being of immense light that in I can't think of the word, that emanates profound love and compassion for the person that had that experience. And I'm like, well, who would this person be? Who would this androgynous being of white light be? And I think it's in many cultures and many religions and many backgrounds, all the way to Hammurabi. Do you remember that? Like Sanskrit,
right, right.
yeah, but has many names. So, Paul, what I'm hoping one day is that we as a society don't have to war or feud over our cultural beliefs, that maybe one day they'll be unified and we can all be on the same page and all, have this understanding. And I think the gateway to that happening is these near death experiences. And all the books that are being written are so similar in that experience. And religious background is really inconsequential to how they're experiencing it. And it's experienced just almost in the same manner all across internationally, all across the globe, no matter what your beliefs are. So, maybe we're onto something
Yeah,
together as a society.
yeah, I believe that if you've made that transition just for kids, for them to understand, that should be a bestseller right away. So congratulations on actually putting that into a children's perspective. Yeah,
Well,
great.
thank you. I
Yeah,
did write a follow-up to this book and it's going to be published soon, but my publisher, well, he's currently in the hospital awaiting a heart transplant. So I have started my own little publishing company called Turning Pages. And I'm going to start, publishing some of my own books while he is trying to survive and heal.
great.
And the next book is called um, Before Evolution, There Was Creationism. So I was trying to bridge the gap, not just about life after death, but about creation versus evolution. We don't have to say that because we believe in evolution, that theology, that it rules it out. It doesn't have to. It can be complementary. My son has this really cool T-shirt, and it's Genesis, but it says, "Before God made me, He made dinosaurs." So why not, Paul?
Right.
Maybe science is proving that planet Earth or the Milky Way galaxy or all the planets is, I think the latest consensus was 13.4 billion years old. It used to be 4.6, so there's a little
Mm,
change there. But yeah, I don't think that scientific fact is ruling out the theological beliefs and perspectives of numerous citizens in this world.
sure.
I do hope that science will complement life after death, why it provides evidence of evolution, and I think it all can come together.
Great.
That's what I'm hoping.
Great. Absolutely. Yeah, wonderful discussion. And what other books do you have then?
Yes, sir. I have my novel,
Mhm.
Stolen. Stolen is a part murder mystery. There's a murder. There's a stolen memoir, which is a journal. And there is also a twist, which makes it part suspense. I'm actually having Stolen adapted for film into a psychological thriller. It is my pride and joy. I did have some readers, and I was sitting in Barnes and Noble, and I did a book signing, and she took it to the cafe and she started reading it, and I was like sweating bullets. And she came by and she said I couldn't put it down. So I've had some really good feedback.
Great.
I had one person say that book was awful. I was like, oh no, what happened? She said, "Your heroine. I just wanted to get her straight." I said, okay, well, yeah, we don't always agree with the main character. So, she still bought another book of mine. So, whether you love Stolen or you're completely against Jolene from the beginning, they have bought my other works. And I just think that's
Perfect.
wonderful. And the screenplay is actually finished for Stolen, and I sent it out to a couple of producers. And I am doing follow ups currently to find out if anybody's had time to read the script. But let me tell you, Paul, these people out there, they're busy,
Yeah.
very busy.
Yeah.
And even though I had 50 people that said yes to reading a screenplay of mine. And in my follow ups, it's pretty cohesive that they all say, "We haven't had time to read it yet. Can you resend it?" So,
Great.
Paul, I'm telling you, something with being a writer, it's
Yeah.
just know off the bat, it doesn't happen overnight. And you really have to hang in there and just keep doing this thing.
Yeah.
What I like is the idea that, have you ever heard Stephen King's Beginning with Carrie?
Oh, yeah.
How he wrote Carrie
Yeah.
got 26 rejections. He threw it in the trash, and his wife took it out of that wastebasket and said, "Don't give up." So even the
Right.
king was ready to turn in the writing pen at some point. And I'll tell you, some days you really question, should I be doing this?
That's great advice. Great advice
Yeah,
for new
yeah,
authors as well as old ones, really. Yeah, and
right.
I imagine that the producers are and directors are all really busy now that the actors strike is over, so they can all start
Oh my
writing.
God.
And
Yeah.
they're all probably overwhelmed with new writings and new theories, new
Mhm.
serials, etc. So yeah,
Yeah.
hang in there. That's a great place. And where's the best place to find you more about Candace Meredith and your books?
Yes, I have a website. It's called Candace Meredith Books. I also have a website for Turning Pages. So if anybody is interested in publishing, I'm looking for memoirs and nonfiction. I will publish some fiction as well. But yeah, Candace Meredith Books, and my books are available on Amazon, Books a Million, Barnes and Noble, couple of little places out there that I've never heard of. So that I thought that was pretty cool, your mom and pop, bookstore. So that I love it, Paul.
Awesome,
I'm
awesome.
having a great ride. And it was Stephen King did say in his memoir on writing, it was a great book, good read. He did say, no matter what, you just have to keep reading and writing. And I think you know, that's good
Yeah,
advice right there. You just got to
definitely.
keep going.
Great. Well, thanks for joining us today, Candace, and it was
Yeah.
a pleasure. And we hope to see your name in the lights really soon.
Oh my gosh, I hope so. Thank you,
Thank
Paul.
you. Thank you. You're
You have
welcome.
a great one.